What if I told you that you will be able to build a full stack application with AWS Amplify in just a matter of hours or even minutes? My name is Jenny. I am a startup solutions architect at Amazon Web Services. And today I'm super excited to be joined by Brad, Senior Technical Account Manager at AWS, and Keith Robinson, CTO of Phospha. Today we have a lot of things to talk about. First of all, I would like to introduce you to AWS Amplify and why you as a developer and as a builder should be using AWS Amplify. We have a very special guest today who will be talking to us about their journey using AWS Amplify, how Amplify helped them overcome the challenges that they initially faced in the journey, as well as helping them achieving the business objectives. We will also talk to you about what's new with AWS Amplify and touch on all of the other different categories that Amplify handles, including hosting, data, authentication, deployments, and AI. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. From startups to enterprise, it's a whole evolution, it's a whole journey. Now, there are elements that stay common throughout that journey, and those are business objectives. Now, when it comes to business objectives, they tend to align quite well with what your customer wants. And our customers, they can be really demanding. They want more engagement with us. They want us to build applications that can scale to manage traffic spikes. They want us to build and iterate those applications quickly. They also want us to deliver and adding enhanced functionalities to those applications for an improved customer experience. And this is really normal because market changes all the time. Hence, customer expectations, requirements, and needs change all the time as well. Now, we as a company, we want to provide our developers a good developer experience because at the end of the day, they are the ones building and delivering your applications. And of course, let's not forget about improving availability and reliability because at the end of the day, your success as a business really, really depends on how well you deliver for your customers. Now, there are other elements that change throughout that journey. So let's talk about the development journey, which is one of those. When you start as an early stage startups, you might be working with incubators, with accelerators, in your parents' garage, in your own garage. And you, as a founder, most likely as a builder in most of the cases, you don't like reinventing the wheel. Because we as founders and builders, we like reusing things that we are familiar with. So when it comes to the time of choosing these frameworks, they tend to be more of those open source kind of frameworks. Now, we start with one to a few applications, not many, because we want to test the market. We want to test the waters of our application. We want to gather feedback. And these are built by a team of developers and most likely run by the same team of developers. Now, when we grow a little bit more and we become sort of a small, medium business, there are a couple of things that start changing. So when it comes to frameworks, you start seeing how you're adding your own components, such as creating a UI library that contains your own styling and branding. Now, you start building and delivering a few more applications than you used to before, built by a team of developers and run by another team of developers, all together with the operations team. So there's a new set of engineers that start appearing to contribute to this stage. And when you grow even a little bit more and become a one-on enterprise, you become more mature. The frameworks that you choose tend to be more bespoke. You start delivering many, many more applications than you used to before, built by a team of developers, following the best practices of solutions architecture with your solutions architects. And these are run by another team of developers, all together with the operations team, with the platform team. And there's a new set of roles that appear in your company, like the SRE role that you need, because there are more needs that appear. Now, as you can see, the development journey changes a lot when you're a startup small medium business, and enterprise. But what doesn't really change is that you as a developer, you as a builder, you need to manage the underlying infrastructure. And this can be challenging, and we know that. We want to help you with that challenge. We want to help you remove that undifferentiated heavy lifting. Because we want you to focus on what really makes you a cool developer, what makes you a cool builder, which is focusing on writing good quality of code, which is giving you time back so that you can focus on those enhanced functionalities that will differentiate your application and your business from the rest of the competitors. So let's remember this challenge for later. Now, something that we've noticed over the time is that front-end developers have actually become full-stack developers. But what do I mean by full-stack? Let's think about that. To really understand that question, let's look at the spectrum of an application. Let's say I have a phone in my hand. I can see the front end built on HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Now, sequentially, this application is calling an API or a few APIs, running on a server. This might be written in a specific server-side language, like Python, .NET, Java, which might be running on different kind of servers. And ultimately, this will be interacting with a database to store, retrieve data. Now, this has changed over the last couple of years. And it's really, really interesting because nowadays what we are seeing is that front-end engineers can actually traverse all the way from the very right to the very left without having to learn a completely new set of languages, frameworks, and technology. And this is really revolutionary. So to give you some examples of what I mean, you would use something like GraphQL to query, mutate the data that the front end needs. Now, you can use something like JavaScript or TypeScript for both front end and the back end. When it comes to the backend itself, we are seeing the direction going towards serverless, Lambda, function as code, running containers on Fargate. And when it comes to interacting with the database, if you are able to communicate with the database using something like GraphQL, then think about it. It means that you as a front-end engineer and your front-end teams, they don't have to learn a completely new set of skills to be able to build a full-stack application. And again, this is really, really revolutionary because what it means is that now front-end developers are able to drive cloud decisions because they're able to build faster and iterate faster. And this is why we built AWS Amplify, to make it easy for you as front-end developers, as builders, to build full-stack applications. Now, let's do a little show of hands. How many of you have ever used AWS Amplify in the past to build something? Wow, that's really exciting. Well, many more hands than what I expected. But thank you for doing that. Now, just for your information, hundreds of thousands of customers have used AWS Amplify to accelerate their time to market. But of course, I don't want you to hear it from me. I want you to hear directly from our special guest, Keith Robinson.
So when I come to a summit event or choose some sessions to watch afterwards, it's because I'm interested in the technologies and hopefully a little bit of evidence that they're used in the real world. To do that here today, I'm going to briefly introduce Phosphor, share our journey into AWS, and highlight the solutions we've built for our customers. Phosphor operates in the ad tech, sometimes called MarTech space. Our customers are direct-to-consumer brands, primarily those selling online, and we help them get a picture of their advertising effectiveness, understanding what works, what delivers the return on their advertising spend. In 2022, we launched Phosphor Pro, our new solution designed to tackle measurement in a world with an ever-increasing focus on privacy. This marked the start of our move onto the AWS cloud and our migration from previous solutions, which were developed and hosted out of data centers near London and New York. Phosphor help brands optimize their spend. eliminate waste, and scale what works. Achieving this requires speed. We believe we deliver the best time to value in the world for our customers. Our platform is designed to provide actionable insights rapidly. We provide year-on-year data from day one, and we're trusted by great brands. And our impact for them is clear. Our customers outperformed the market last year by over 30% in the return on advertising spend. Foster have been focused on marketing measurement for quite a long time now, driven by the goal to empower marketing teams everywhere to make smarter, data-driven decisions. We've got probably 15 years of data engineering experience integrating all the common platforms that everyone uses, so Google, Meta, Snap, Salesforce, Shopify, and then the long tail of marketing sources across a client base that's about 200 customers at the moment, and over the last 15 years, probably a few hundred. The pipelines create a clean, structured foundation as the basis for our accurate measurement and our ML modeling. The sophisticated modeling has been proven to handle complex real-world scenarios, ensuring our outputs are accurate, actionable, and designed to enable smart, confident budget decisions. The entire capability is delivered to customers through dashboards, reports, emails, AI-supported insights through the Phosphor Pro platform, which was built and delivered using AWS Amplify. Over the last 10 years, there have been a whole series of applications. When I initially joined, it's a Java-based application using Apache Tapestry, delivered through Tomcat, hosted on-premise. Then, end of the last decade, start of this decade, we were using traditional BI tools, first Cognos, then Looker. But we were always having to support that through our customer success teams providing insight decks. The BI-based front ends were not really enabling our customers to do the jobs they needed to do. So three years ago, we made a decision to build a new front end, which is where AWS Amplify comes into the story. We'd already chosen AWS as our cloud platform for the data pipelines or data storage in 2022. So it was natural to look at how we'd build the new UI using AWS serverless technologies. A small part of our engineering team undertook an evaluation project and pretty quickly reached the conclusion that they'd be happy working with AWS Amplify to solve the problems that we'd had, or that we knew we had, delivering what were largely single-tenant solutions with individual deployments. So probably the top two things that the engineering and ops team wanted to get rid of were the manual deployments and pain we'd had with CI/CD when trying to deploy through Looker and Cognito. So there were a number of features that I'll run through briefly that in Amplify helped solve those problems for us. So Amplify's hosting provides us with a fully managed CI/CD pipeline. It supports us well, although initially with a small team. It allows us to have branch-based environments, supporting individual developers working on different parts of the problem at different times. The Amplify console in particular provided the centralized dashboard for managing that in the initial stages, and has continued to do so with a front-end team using Amplify, or a full-stack team using Amplify that's probably about 15 people. It kind of morphs and forms into 2 or 3 different teams at different points in time. Other features of Amplify that are really important to us, the heart of every application, or every application with a front end, is going to involve authentication, data access, and storage. So for us, the Amplify authentication connects to Cognito, which provides our core authentication system. Amplify API connects us to our GraphQL APIs through AppSync, and Amplify storage supports our interactions with S3, so report exports and downloads. The Amplify React library joins all of that together for us with pre-built components that make authentication flows, API calls, and that data access really the heart of every application, simpler and more consistent. 6 months, maybe with the last couple of years of Gen AI, sounds like quite a long time now, but that 6 months has built us a solid foundation on the journey from a POC to a production application. Yes, we had an existing application, so we knew what we were building, we knew what we wanted to fix with it, but the 6 months the 6 months has set a really solid foundation, and the key enabler in doing that was our choice to use AWS Amplify. We've had a pretty successful last couple of years, doubling in both customer numbers, headcount, revenue, lots of metrics I could quote in each of the last 2 years. Some of that is obviously the excellent team we have at Phosphor, both in the technology group and our customer service team, but Amplify has definitely been a significant part of that journey. It's empowered our developers to build and deploy faster, more reliably, and with great confidence. The smooth migrations of existing customers onto the platform pretty much successfully migrated everyone who was using the previous platform onto Amplify, further validated our strategic decision. I'm really happy to be handing over to Brad now to tell us more about what's coming with Amplify as we move forwards.
Thank you, Keith. It's really great to hear from customers directly about how Amplify is helping them accelerate their time to market. I know we've got a large section of the Phosphor team in today. Give us a cheer. Thanks for coming, guys. I'm really excited to see what you build next with Amplify. And I'm here today to talk to you all about Amplify's newer features, how you can use them to build full stack apps quicker than ever. So last year, the next generation of AWS Amplify became generally available. Now this represents a new code-first approach. So you can define your application code and infrastructure code both in TypeScript. This gives you a unified code base, and the infrastructure provisioning happens directly from your TypeScript code. Front-end and back-end code in a single code base eliminates the need for your manual authoring switching between the two. You can also use Amazon Q to generate code from your natural language input right inside your IDE. And now you can unlock rapid iteration with per developer sandbox environments. These allow you to create your infrastructure in seconds in a test environment, detect local code changes that happen once you save your file, and get instant previews based on every save. You can get continuous updates through your CI/CD pipeline and have that manage the heavy lifting for you, so you don't really need to roll out between different environments. You don't need to manage it. So today I'm going to walk you through some of the new features, talk you through some demos that we have. We're going to build some stuff. Here's some of the things that you need to look out for, really. Having type safety across your front end and back end, as I mentioned, it provides this unified development experience. But why is that important? It helps you actually catch errors early in the development cycle. Makes it a significant advantage for developers that are building full stack applications. Sandboxes, this is one of my favorite new features. I can't wait to show you a little bit more about this, explain why, and we'll go into some detail in the demo. And we're now bringing features that help you build Gen AI apps. So with the AI kit, developers are able to build features integrated directly into Amazon Bedrock using that feature. And all of these are built based on feedback that we get directly from developers. Now, one problem that developers have is the disconnect between local development and cloud deployments. Developers often spend hours configuring their environments, writing deployment scripts, debugging infrastructure, instead of actually building the features that their customers need. So I'm going to show you how Amplify's approach bridges this gap, provides you a consistent experience from your local development all the way through to production deployment. Let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is navigate to the Amplify console. Cool. So we'll start by going to the Amplify service page, and we'll start by building a new app. So we'll connect it up to our Git provider, and then once authorized, we can actually select a repository that we want to use and an individual branch if needed. So we'll go through this manual setup. And this is a one-time process when we're kicking off our hosting project. So now we've connected up the branch, right? The next thing after that, we're going to start to define our build spec. If we already have one out of the box, then we're good to go. But we can add custom features in here. And Amplify has recognized here that this is a Gen 2 application. This is the newest version of Amplify. And here's where we define any other advanced features that we want. And whilst it's deploying, it's building your app according to that build spec. And then you'll benefit from continuous deployments on this branch going forward. Now it's deployed, you'll see the list of services that have been deployed by Amplify. On the left-hand side, you can inspect individual resources. And then we get a link to our finished application. And what you can see here is the sample to-do application from the Amplify documentation. So we're going to build upon this across a few demos to show you some of the functionality that you can build from Amplify. Now, every time that I push a new update to this branch, a new deployment is going to be triggered. And you've not had to create any scripts to do this, set up any pipelines. All this just works. Now that we've seen how easy it is to deploy our front end by adding the hosting, we're going to take it to the next level and add a back end. Now, do we need to go and speak to our back-end team who have the specialization knowledge to do this? No, this is where Amplify is going to help you as a front-end developer to actually integrate the cloud resources without having that deep back-end expertise. Getting started is straightforward. You just run this command in your existing repository, and Amplify will scaffold a back-end for you. It adds the following resources by default for things like authentication and data. Helps you get quickly started with defining your app. And now that we actually have a backend, we can provision a sandbox. For this, we use these per developer cloud sandbox environments. This provides us an isolated environment to build, test, and iterate on your code. And you can view and manage all the cloud environments, these cloud sandboxes, from within the Amplify console. Now let me tell you, a sandbox environment, being able to create these on the fly, dynamically, set up the access needed, the necessary guardrails, and then the ability for developers to actually clean up after themselves is something that most enterprises dream of. But developers working with Amplify can get this straight out of the box. And with Amplify data, you have the ability to add GraphQL APIs. Using the managed GraphQL service, AppSync, backed by a database. Now this is usually DynamoDB by default, but if you wanted to, if you have the use case, you could add an existing MySQL or Postgres database as well. And Amplify data comes with libraries that make it easier to interact with your data. So you can list, create, mutate, without writing all of this boilerplate code to interact with your APIs. AppSync events let you create secure and performant WebSockets. So these are able to broadcast real-time event data to millions of subscribers without you having to manage the connections or the scaling involved. For that, think of the use cases such as like live document collaborative apps, polling apps, chat apps, these types of things, and generative AI applications. So let's put this all together. Let's create a new feature with Amplify data and then test that our changes work using a cloud sandbox. Here, I've already got the cloud sandbox running using npx ampex sandbox. And you can see here that the server-side code, this is the server-side code that we're working in the data schema, and we're adding a is done field to the to-do schema. Now, as soon as I hit save on that, that field in the schema is made available to the client side. So I can start building out my front-end application to interact with my new backend instantly. Now we can also run our front end locally as well to interact with this AppSync GraphQL API in our, that's going to be deployed within our sandbox environment. So I've saved the changes. And now Amplify has detected that the change has been made. And it's running the commands to detect what changes they are and what we need to deploy. Because that was quite a small change, that's happened quite quickly. And we can go back to our front end and we can see that we can add a to-do. We can now mark it as done, and it's now complete. So when I'm happy with this feature, it works as expected. I can terminate this session in my sandbox. I can choose to either destroy the resources, or I can keep them around for future development later on. And if I forget all about it, I can come back to the console and I can delete the environment as and when. Okay, authentication. So we want to secure our to-do application. Authentication is a critical component of most applications, but it can be really complex to implement correctly. Fortunately, Amplify is going to make this process straightforward for us. It's got these built-in authentication features, and I want to show you some more about these. So the first requirement you have, all we need is a login flow. We just need our users to log in. But very quickly, you realize that what that actually means is you need password hashing, email verification flows, password reset logic, protection against brute force attacks. And that's before we even think about building a nice fancy UI for it all to work. It's a complex journey. It can take weeks of development time. And that's why we looked at Amplify for this. The UI components that exist in Amplify are able to be dropped in so you can they can handle the entire authentication flow. The config for these is held within your Amplify output file. And you've got components ready for whichever framework you're using, whether that's React, Angular, Vue, or React Native. And they're not basic components. They cover all the edge cases that you'd eventually encounter, whether now or further down the line. You've got your sign-up, sign-in flows, password management, MFA setup, everything you need, really. And beneath the surface, it's all running on Cognito. So you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not rebuilding auth security from scratch. It can handle all the complex bits for you. Auth flows, account recovery, user management, you name it. And it's going to scale automatically. OK, let's add in our authentication component then into our to-do application. The first step, we'll go through and install and import the Amplify UI library. So we're using React for this project. So we use the UI React library. And then once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and wrap our entire application within the authenticator component. Once we've done that, we've restricted access to logged in users to our app, just like that. We're going to go with the default settings that come with Amplify Auth. And this just means that users have to supply an email address to log in and confirm that they've received a one-time passcode. But we could go further than this. We could add some custom fields. We could get what time the user signed up or whether they want to opt in or out of marketing preferences. Or we could forgo passwords altogether and implement a one-time passcode login verification flow only. Now we go over to the client side of our application. And we're going to use the sign out hook that is provided by Amplify libraries. So this hook is going to allow us to build the sign out flow. We just need to hit that at some point and give an option to our user to sign out. So we're going to add a sign out button. Now we'll hit save. We'll deploy all of that. And we'll see straight away we have a full sign in, sign out flow. Our users are able to register, sign up, sign in, and then sign out. Cool. So now we've solved that problem. We've implemented, demonstrated the user authentication with Cognito. We want to look at how we can safely deploy these changes. we want to test our new authentication feature in isolation before we then push it to production. We can do this with full stack branch deployments. So you can automatically deploy the infrastructure based on a particular branch, and you can merge it into, or you can deploy it into a feature branch. So this is going to allow your developers to verify their changes in a staging environment first, test them safely, share a link to the deployment before it's merged into production. So now your team can all work on different features simultaneously without stepping on each other's toes or needing access to different environments. No more waiting for that staging environment to free up. You can also password protect your branches. And if needed, you could share resources so that you don't need to reseed the data or add users again and again. Cool. So now that we've done that, I'm going to show you how seamless it is to test these new features with branch deployments. So I've already created a branch for this authentication feature called auth. I'm going to add my changes that I've just done and merge them into a new feature branch. So once I've committed these auth changes, push them to their own branch, we can head over to the Amplify console, and it will automatically detect our changes with our branch, and it will start deploying those changes to an isolated environment. Okay, good to go. So now I head over to the console. It's detected the changes and started a deployment. We can see the resources being added in the bottom hand side of the screen. And then we get this URL that we're able to access. We can send this to our testing team. Once it's been reviewed and approved, we can merge that branch automatically into main. And then Amplify will deploy everything you need into production. No manual infrastructure work needed. That's great. So dealing with file storage can also be a real headache for developers. You typically end up writing tons of boilerplate code just to interact with S3 or other storage solutions. These are just for basic file operations, and with Amplify storage, it's going to make our lives easier. So first off, these libraries that you can use with Amplify storage handle all the S3 interactions. No more writing SDK configurations or managing different SDK clients, writing different Lambda functions to interact just to get lists and uploads and grab your data that's been uploaded by your users. And then here's the interesting part. You can combine this with the storage browser UI component, and it becomes a real time saver. Instead of spending days building out a file management interface, you can just drop this into your application, and it'll handle everything for you. So that your users are then able to upload files, see their files, and it will respect all of your authentication rules that we just created with Amplify Auth. No extra code needed to restrict the access, no complex permission logic, no worrying about how we're going to get the time to build all this out. It's just good to go. Now, serverless functions is something that we've all had to write before as developers. You write the code pretty quickly because it's doing a specific task, but then configuring it to interact with other services or setting up the access requirements can take a bit longer. And this is where Amplify functions can help for you. Again, you get a library that makes working with functions really simple. The best part, it also plays nicely with all of the Amplify stuff that you've already set up with authentication. So let's say in this example, you're building an app and you need to kick off a background process when a user signs up. Maybe you need to add them to this marketing list so that we know that we can send them emails at a later date. We'll write the code directly within our Amplify project. We'll hook it up to our authentication trigger so that it has an input for when it needs to start. And we've done all this without having to context switch between services, set up permissions. It's all in one place. It's just working together as it should. Now, I want to explore how our applications can be taken to the next level. And a lot of developers are exploring how they can build with generative AI. As it becomes more important in modern applications, Amplify is joining you on this journey to provide the tools to make it integrating these capabilities straightforward with the AI kit. So I want to show you how we can introduce this into our to-do application. And if you've already been trying to work with AI, you'll know it's not just about the model that you want to pick. It's about the infrastructure and all the integration work that comes along with it. That's why Amplify comes with client AI libraries that make integration a breeze. So if you need to create a chat interface, you can use the Conversation API to handle all the heavy lifting. No more wrestling with WebSocket connections or managing the state from your conversations. It's all here within this kit for you. And on the UI side of things, Amplify comes with pre-built components. So the AI Conversation API hooks into these components, and you can see on the screen what that component will look like. A chat interface where users can upload attachments, see their conversation history, and send messages provided for you. If we take a quick look at what the sample code will look like, there's really not a lot of boilerplate code here to get started with what is quite a complex infrastructure setup. You can import all the client libraries at the top. We have the type schema for type safety. And then the client setup is straightforward, really. Our authentication user pool is hooked in so that it respects the authentication rules we've already created. And then the AI conversation component is handling the chat UI side of things. Cool. So I want to also add this, add a new generative AI feature into our to-do app. I'm going to show you how easy it is for us to do this. Going back to the data schema that we worked on right at the beginning, we're going to enhance it and create a generate task model. So the generate model, that's what enables us to send a prompt to a GenAI model and have a response back that we can render in our application. We're going to set some initial configurations here. So we're going to set the model that we want to use, and then we're going to add a system prompt. Now, the system prompt is crucial. That's going to shape what the AI's responses are. We want something that will give users like really helpful, actionable suggestions. So thinking about our to-do application, a user will type in a task that they want to complete. So wouldn't it be great if we could respond back to them by giving them some ideas for how they can complete that task? And here's what we'll input into the system prompt. We'll tell it it's a helpful assistant. You're going to generate ideas for it to do a task, and you should provide a list that will make it easier for the user to complete the task. You're using Claude 3 Sonnet as our underlying model because it's really useful for this kind of like task generation. And we've already set up the client-side code and the front-end codes in our project. All we have on the front end is a button that replaces our initial button that we had for adding a task. And this triggers the generate task prompt. Just finished defining the system prompt, and then we can head over and see our changes. So now we're going to write a to-do for ourselves. We want to write a blog about our experience at AWS Summit 2025. And we're going to add that to our to-do list. In doing so, the to-do app has provided a list of ideas that we can implement for our blog. And that's great. This is the power of combining AI with our to-do app. It's not just storing tasks anymore, retrieving them from DynamoDB. It's helping our users actively plan and organize their work. Okay, let's wrap up some of what we've covered today with Amplify's next generation. First, the TypeScript-first approach is a game changer, enables to get the type safety that we need so that we can concentrate on building our front ends. No more guessing about the API shapes or data structures. Data capabilities are more powerful than ever. We demonstrate how quickly you can get set up with an AppSync API that's backed by a database and how it seamlessly integrates with your front-end code. And the sandbox environments are revolutionizing how we test. No more waiting for an environment to free up. No more setup. You get instant cloud resources for testing your changes. All right, and now let's make sure you have everything you need to get started with what we've covered. Here's some links to the Amplify docs where you can get a deeper dive on Gen 2, what that means, how it's different. You can also look at the AI kit and how that can work for your users. And there are some deeper dives on like what the TypeScript approach really means for Amplify. And if all of this is new to you, AWS Skill Builder has some excellent learning paths to help you learn Amplify, the services that support it, so you can get started there. And finally, if you could just take out your phone and scan the QR code, then you can provide us with some feedback that we can use for our next presentation using the survey in the app. Jenny spoke to you today about Amplify, front-end development, how the world of development is changing. And Keith showed you some real-world use cases that he's managed to achieve with Amplify at Phosphor. All three of us just want to say thank you. Thanks for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.